What's up, everybody? It's Keefy at ghostcultkeefy.com. Since 2012, ghostcultkeefy.com is your everyday resource for music reviews, interviews, news, concert festival reviews around the world, and much more. I'm here with a quick video review of the new Jerry Cantrell album, I Want Blood, out this week from Double J Records, an imprint likely from Jerry himself. This is not our usual weekly live stream where we're very interactive. We'll try to be a little interactive if you want to ask some questions about Jerry and this album. Otherwise, drop it in the comments and we'll get back to you when the stream is done. Oh, my homie Ron Douglas is here. What up, Ron? I love you. Good to see you. So, new Jerry Cantrell album. To me, it's an event. It may not be for everybody else, obviously. In case you didn't know, Jerry Cantrell is the co-founder of Alice in Chains. This is his fourth solo album. Obviously, his music sounds a lot like Alice in Chains when he makes solo music. I think that's very well known, but still cool nonetheless. I Want Blood is pretty rad. Let's bring in the deck and call it in. There's the very distinctive album cover. Very creepy and appropriately creepy and spooky for Halloween time. And there's already a written review of this up on the site at ghostcultman.com. It's linked in the description if you're curious. And let's get underway without further ado, because we are going to do a track-by-track breakdown of the record. But first, a little backstory. Jerry has been pretty prolific the last few years. I don't know if people are aware of this, but between Alice in Chains and touring, they have really ramped it up to a period, I think, probably more active than they have ever been. I know they definitely take breaks. They were not a headliner, but they were one of the top bands at Sick New World this year. Sick New World just releasing their 2025 lineup. But, I think Jerry is becoming kind of, a well-understood elder statesman of rock and metal, which I think is, admirable. I think Alice in Chains kind of got their legs cut out from under them. And then honestly, in the same vein of 70s artists who were in a big group and then went solo, I'm surprised that Jerry Cantrell didn't have like an early solo career, much like members of the Eagles did when they were disbanded, like Glenn Frey and Joe Walsh and Don Henley. I always found it really interesting that Jerry didn't become like a huge popular rock star. More than he already is, but like a mainstream rock star, which did not really actually happen. He opened for Metallica and he toured around the world behind those really great records, Boggy Depot and Degradation Trip 1 and 2, which we've had vinyl reissues of those in the last few years, which have been really great. And, Jerry is Jerry. He's going to come out and make his music that's his. And it's going to sound like his music, it's going to sound like his bands, it's going to sound like Chains, it's going to sound, a variation on a theme of what he's used to doing. So here we are with I Want Blood. He had, here's Chains, and apparently 2025 will be a busy year for Alice in Chains. We might get a recording next year. They've begun to write it, so they haven't recorded yet. So whether it will come out within 2025 or early 26, I'm not sure yet. In the meantime, the other guys are surely keeping busy. And of course, Jerry is riding high because on top of his solo album coming out right now, we just did this retrospective here on the channel for Black Dude's Way to Blue. It's just turned 15 years old, and because they put out a vinyl reissue, this is the power of vinyl, which we'll get to later also, because they put out this vinyl reissue of Alice in Chains' Black Dude's Way to Blue on Craft Recordings, our friends at Craft Recordings, that album has re-entered the charts because it sold like 2,000-3,000 copies on vinyl, and that was enough to make it back, put it back into the charts, which is nice, and got a lot of streams on vinyl and on Spotify and streaming and stuff like that because of the vinyl. It's kind of an interesting music industry conversation to have later about does the vinyl influence the streaming. But anyhow, let's delve into the record and just hear some live shot of Jerry and the album cover. Live shot of Jerry's by my partner at Ghost Cult, Omar Cordy. And I think it's really interesting. Jerry has this album, like his previous albums, got guest appearances. Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses, Rob Trujillo of Metallica, Mike Bordin of Faith No More. Both those guys were early Jerry Cantrell contributors to Degradation Trip and Boggy Depot. Also, Greg Puciato of Dillinger Escape Plan, Better Lovers, Killer Be Killed, Black Queen. Greg has come on to Jerry's solo touring endeavors and kind of taken the spot of Lane Staley or William Duvall on the older material, but he got to sing all over the previous Jerry solo record from a couple of years ago, Brighton, which was amazing. And this one is right in line with that. He got production from Evil Joe Barresi, best known for Slipknot and Clutch and Tool and Mastodon and a bunch of other bands. And I think Jerry is really enjoying kind of being a solo artist for the first time, much more than the last time. And the process is what excites Jerry. I highly recommend. He did an interview with Rick Beato that we featured on our website. Please don't interrupt watching this video to go watch Rick Beato interview Jerry, but Rick Beato and Jerry did about an hour talking more about how Jerry writes music and all this really complex and interesting stuff that I don't think I've ever heard him talk about before. I would personally love to get an interview with Jerry. So let's just jam into the track-by-track review right here really quick. The album opens with the extremely heavy track Vilified, which was a single. I would say, like, in some ways, this is some of Jerry's most metal material, this song and this album. Super heavy. Why so heavy? In the words of the great Paul Bailoff. A couple of really cool like tempo changes, and then even like a breakdown part at the end that could be like a punchy mosh part in the right circumstance. I think it's really great. The great halftime beatdown hardcore part almost. Really surprising and refreshing. Of course, it's going to sound like Jerry. You got all the hallmarks of the Jerry album on here. Great layered vocals, the dissonant harmonies, the talkbox guitar, all the things. All the ear candy, all of Jerry's great lyrical lead guitar work. All here in this album, and a lot of it here on this first song. The second track is Off the Rails, sick guitar riff, kind of reminding me of Sweet Child of Mine a little bit. Also a really cool droney vocal. This is another thing Jerry loves to do across his career, is kind of double track vocals and then drone them in unison when he's not harmonizing. A couple of cool key changes and a ripping guitar solo. And here on the album, you either get guests, sort of Jerry trying, even though he's doing the same kind of vocal harmonies Chains does, I think what you get here with Jerry is he's doubling himself a lot of times as opposed to playing off of someone else's lyricism and vocal harmonies. The third track, and probably one of the best tracks here, is Afterglow. Kind of reminded me, Jerry's lyrics are always very self-depreciating and dark, and I feel like Afterglow is, if Jerry tried to write a Nick Cave song, it would be, very dour and sad, but, kind of like a bright song with a sad lyric and a sad vocal. That's Jerry's kind of trademark, right? The title track is next, I Want Blood, kind of a revved up ZZ Top meets AC/DC meets Alice in Chains song. There's also like a Queens of the Stone Age kind of vibe to it, like Songs for the Deaf, which I really liked. You can tell why it's the title track. It's the most up-tempo track and catchy track on the album, and unsurprising. I think a track a lot of people are going to resonate to and kind of go for is this next track, Echoes of Laughter, which features Greg from Dillinger Escape Plan on vocals, and it's more like a chilled out, not quite unplugged, but kind of like a Jar of Flies electric acoustic kind of jam. It's one of the longer songs on the record, and definitely has a very cool lyrical quality to it. It's a little on the slow side, as some of these songs are very mid-tempo, but this is a good track I think a lot of people are going to gravitate to, and I wouldn't be surprised if it winds up being another single because it has Greg, and Jerry and Greg go well together. Throw Me a Line is the next track, another real metal banger, and very sinister and rocking out kind of track, which is cool. There we go, Throw Me a Line. Next is Let It Lie with a very slow boil, like the most AIC sounding track on the record. Musically, kind of reminds me of Dirt and some of the earlier material of the band, and maybe even some of Jerry's earlier solo material. I think Degradation, Trip, and Buggy Depot have a lot of psychedelic doom and psychedelic, Pink Floyd inspired doom metal on it a little bit. And Held Your Tongue is the next to last track, and it's also a banger. I like this song a lot. I do go back to this one often in the 4 or 5 times I've listened to this whole record all the way through. And then the final track on the album, It Comes, is very lengthy. I think Jerry likes to do this on his records. It's getting very contemplative on the last track. It's also, kind of, again, a mid-tempo track. I will say that our review by our own Thomas Thrower at ghostcultman.com did remark that the record, two problems for him with the record is it's a little samey, same tempo-ish, and that maybe some of the slower songs kind of grind to a halt for him personally. But me, I think if you're a lover of Jerry's work with Chains and his solo stuff, you're probably going to love this record an awful lot. And yeah, I'm into it, man. I'm into it tremendously. I think it's definitely going to be a record I come back to later in this year and in future years. Probably his best work. Really cool art direction and packaging and album artwork by Ryan Clark. And again, I think the mixing is phenomenal. Some other people on the record who I think bear some respect and mention beside Jerry and Robert Trujillo and Duff McKagan. Gil Sharon, you probably know best from Made Out of Babies and Dillinger Escape Plan and Devin Townsend and a bunch of other things. Vincent Jones did some keyboards on about half the record. Lola Collette is the backing vocalist on a third of the songs. And I thought there was some pretty cool, in addition to Puppy Borden and Greg, Maxwell Orosky did the backing vocals and sound effects on Held Your Tongue. So that is pretty cool. That is a quick review of Jerry Cantrell's I Want Blood, out this week on Double J Records. I think it's very clear homage, an on-purpose mention and reference for Jerry to have his own imprint. He's worked very hard the last release or two to be more DIY artist and not be part of the major label game like he is with Alice in Chains. And then maybe that's the direction he's going to go in. We are going to get a whole headline tour next year with Filter in direct support. And I do recall, I shared this bit of information here before the end here, that due to some manufacturing issues, the vinyl is actually not coming out this week. So if you pre-ordered it and you're expecting the vinyl, it's not going to be available until the 25th. And if they just found this out a couple of days ago, I know there's a record signing event in LA on Friday on the release day for the digital. I'm not sure that's still happening or if it's going to get postponed. Hopefully it's still going to happen for people who are excited to meet Jerry at Amoeba Hollywood, where I was just there. It's a phenomenal place. And yeah, very stoked about this new Jerry Cantrell album. Personally, for me, this is a high 8. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it too. Thanks for checking this out. Drop a comment. Tell us what other things you would like to see us review, what upcoming records you want us to review, what past historical records you would like my take on. Drop a comment. Thanks for checking out ghostcultman.com and me, and we're out. Peace.